Hi, today I'm going to be talking about pushing back how blogs and podcasts are empowering birthing bodies online. It talks about how the current state of birth in the United States reveals the history of anti-black racism and obstetrics and gynecology has not been addressed on a systemic level. This means that there are intersectional failures. So a podcast was launched by Poonam Sharma Mathis called Pregnant in a pandemic so that she could bring women like her together and speak about what it's like to be pregnant in the pandemic. So in my future career, when I think of podcasts, I need to think about bringing the community together and trying to help people achieve a common goal or just be able to relate to what I'm talking about. So she wants to open the floor to a more casual conversation and focus less on Western medicine and more on personal experiences. This chapter discusses the ways birth blogs and podcasts function as network feminist coalitions to provide a pedagogical vehicle for information and to empower people giving birth. So these media allow birthing bodies to push back against bio-certified understanding of birth in medical spaces. The second function is to make visible options outside of the medical model of birth and labor. Third is to share birth stories online, reinforcing the spectrum of normal sensations and emotions of labor. So they speak about how the gynecological field is founded on non-consensual experimentation on enslaved black women by white male doctors and scientists. So the reading talks about how hospitals wanted birthing bodies to come to them and promise less painful births. So the hospitals made it normalized to be heavily medicated while giving birth. The reading talks about how expensive it is to give birth now. And then it talks about television playing a role and how it depicted childbirth causing more women to go to the hospitals. And it showed childbirth in mostly a negative way. This is why the podcasts and blogs are so important, so they can share the real truth. I think in my future career, I want to be educational with my content like these blogs are. I want to show what, playing fantasy football is like for the average person, because that's what I want to focus on in my podcast. So this reading talks about how doctors can manage the labor process in the hospital if they're in charge. People have been known to get procedures without consent. People need to know about people need to have prior knowledge of the birthing process. It says there's clearly racism still going on in the birthing process. To tie this into my future career, I want my blogs and writing to have a bunch of information easily accessible. I want to have a lot of data, that supports what I'm talking about. So then the reading gives examples of real life birthing stories. It talks about how it's a safe place the blogs are for pregnancy and people that have had like miscarriages. They talk about masculine birth rituals and how people need to share their story. And then moving on to ChatGDP in the global south, how are journalists in sub-Saharan Africa engaging with generative AI? So the study explored how journalists in sub-Saharan Africa are utilizing ChatGDP, a generative AI tool that operates on a limited and non-representative African corpus. So the study suggests that AI tools can have both a positive and negative effect on journalism in developing countries. The global south is increasingly dependent on generative AI tools, but skeptics challenge McLuhan's and Mbembe's vision of an interconnected world. The study investigated the integration of generative AI tools into the daily practices of journalism in 5 African countries. I think in the future I'll be interested in the types of AI tools I can use in journalism. I think AI is really taking off, and I want to be someone that is in the forefront of using it in a positive manner. I know it can help me a lot of ways, so I want to find those ways and take advantage of them. So researchers argue that the exponential growth of social media in the global south is driven by the creation of raw data, which corporations collect and sell at a higher profit. Harvard scholars Debbie Ginsberg and Jack Cushman performed an experiment on ChatGPT 3 and found that it performed competitively well in translation prompts, but lagged in translation, robustness, and multilingual translation. So researchers are still debating the relationship between generative AI and journalism. In my future, I have to be careful the way I use AI in journalism. I have to keep my work authentic. The study involved conducting interviews with 43 journalists from 5 sub-Saharan African countries. So the findings of this study indicate that the majority of journalists expressed enthusiasm regarding the potential capabilities of generative AI, but disappointment due to the limitations of generative AI tools within their specific local environment. So I hopefully AI will continue to improve in the future. It talks about ChatGPT being assembled for its ability to distinguish accurate from inaccurate information by asking participants about their truth in the output. They asked journalists about how stereotypes are perpetuated by generative AI, and they indicated that they are extremely cautious when dealing with such topics. So, as more information came to light, respondents began to question ChatGPT-3's accuracy and indicated that the chatbot could not write a complex or relevant story. So I just think I need to be careful if I'm using like AI in the future to make sure I know exactly what it's capable of. Yeah, and that's it.